you feel like you win this sparring because you did what your coach asked you.
Dmitry Bivol has issued a strong warning to David Benavidez, saying he will brutally defeat him once they step into the ring. This warning comes in response to Benavidez's claims that Bivol has nothing to offer and is a weak fighter as shown in their sparring match. Bivol, however, is determined to prove Benavidez wrong. He insists that he only took it easy during their sparring to give Benavidez a fighting chance. Now, Bivol is confident that Benavidez will not win against him in a real fight. David Benavidez, brimming with confidence, unexpectedly brought up the sparring match he had with Dmitry Bivol. He boasted about how easily he handled Bivol during that session, using it as proof of his superiority in the ring. Benavidez's remarks were meant to show that Bivol is not a real threat, and that he could easily defeat him again in a real fight. When Bivol heard about Benavidez's comments, he quickly responded. Bivol emphasized that their sparring match was just practice and didn't reflect his true abilities. He suggested that Benavidez's confidence is misplaced and that a real fight would be a completely different story. He believes the outcome of their sparring match was not indicative of what would happen in an actual bout, and he seems eager to prove himself against Benavidez in the ring. Why is he making a fuss out of a sparring match? Does he really think that sparring will make any difference once we are in the ring? Said Bivol. During a sparring session, the 27-year-old David Benavidez managed to defeat WBA light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol. This victory in practice gave Benavidez a boost in confidence, making him believe he could also beat Bivol in a real fight. Bivol, who has an impressive record of 23 wins, 0 losses, and 12 knockouts, may have been too relaxed during the sparring match. This led to what some people call a humiliating defeat for him. Benavidez took full advantage of this opportunity to mock and belittle his opponent, using the sparring session as evidence of his superiority. Bivol, now 33 years old, said during an interview that sparring and real fights are completely different. He says that sparring sessions don't reflect his true fighting abilities because they are just practice, a time to try out new techniques and follow his coach's instructions. Bivol emphasizes that during sparring, he often focuses on specific strategies his coach wants him to work on, rather than going all out to win. This means that the outcome of a sparring match doesn't predict how an actual fight would turn out. Bivol wants people to understand that a sparring session is just a learning experience and not a true test of his skills. He insists that Benavidez's victory in their sparring match should not be seen as a sign of what would happen in a real fight. He says that when it comes to a real match, his focus and approach would be entirely different, and he would show his true strength and capability. Now, if you didn't know, David Benavidez recently achieved a resounding victory against Alexander Gvozdyk. This impressive win added to his growing reputation as a formidable fighter. After the fight, Benavidez made a significant announcement to the media. He stated that he plans to return to the 168-pound weight class. This move is strategic for Benavidez, as he aims to pursue a title fight against the famous Canelo Alvarez, one of the biggest names in boxing. Benavidez's decision to drop back to 168 pounds shows his determination to achieve his goals. Targeting a fight with Canelo, he is setting his sights on one of the toughest challenges in the sport. A match with Canelo would not only be a major event for boxing fans, but also a chance for Benavidez to prove himself against one of the best fighters in the world. David Benavidez currently holds an impressive record of 29 wins, 0 losses, and 24 knockouts. Despite this strong record, some boxing experts believe he would be better off staying in the super middleweight division. They argue that Benavidez might lack the necessary strength and endurance to compete with the top fighters in the 175-pound weight class. These experts feel that staying at super middleweight would allow Benavidez to continue dominating his opponents and building his legacy. The concerns from the boxing pros highlight the challenges that come with moving up in weight class. While Benavidez has shown great skill and power at super middleweight, the competition at 175 pounds is tougher and might require more from him physically. I respect him as a fighter. He's a really great fighter. What he's saying is that he wants to fight me and beat Erbiev. It means he's a great fighter. He's confident and he wants to achieve more. I remember we had a couple of good sparring. It was good moments from my side and some good moments from his side. said Dmitry Bivol in media reports. Although Bivol tried to avoid talking about the sparring session with Benavidez, the topic still came up during an interview. Bivol's responses were somewhat evasive, as he seemed reluctant to discuss the details. However, the interviewer skillfully managed to get some information out of him.
We had a couple of sparrings. I remember it was some of good moments from my side, some good moments from his side. But it's sparring.
Due to the interviewer's persistence, Bivol eventually gave an honest response about the sparring session with Benavidez. Bivol explained that the outcome of the sparring was influenced by his coach's instructions. He said that he was following his coach's direction during the session, trying to practice specific techniques. Bivol emphasized that he was simply being obedient to his coach's guidance, which affected his performance.
You do some things which coach told you. You should do this and this, and you are trying one round, you couldn't do it. Another round, you try to do this. It couldn't. On the third round, you can do it.
But Bivol vowed that when it comes to a real fight, things will be different. He said Benavidez should not expect the same outcome as their sparring match. Bivol warned that the real fight will be brutal and harsh, and Benavidez should prepare for a much tougher challenge. Bivol is determined to ensure that the events of the sparring session will not be repeated in an actual bout. In the fight, of course, it's different. In the fight, they ask you to do something. You will not waste your time if it's not good. You will try to do another thing. Sparring is training, continued Bivol. Now, even though Bivol lost the sparring match to Benavidez, there are still many people who believe the sparring match doesn't mean much. These people think that the result of the sparring session doesn't reflect what would happen in a real fight. They believe Benavidez doesn't have a real chance against Bivol when it comes to an official match. Based on their analysis, some experts believe that David Benavidez would likely lose to 6 of the top fighters, largely based on his performance against Gvozdyk, which they viewed as subpar. They suggest that Benavidez needs to prove himself by defeating respected opponents such as Anthony Yarden and Willie Hutchinson before he can consider challenging the winner of a potential bout between Bivol and Beterbiev. Since the sparring match, Bivol has intensified his training regimen, prioritizing preparation to such an extent that he has restricted distractions, including movies he once enjoyed. He emphasizes that he has eliminated emotional distractions and remains fully focused on following his coach's training plan.
I don't want anybody to disturb me. Even some movies I don't want to watch. I know that it's a drama, or I don't want to watch this movie. I don't want these emotions. I will spend emotions.
So, will Bivol redeem himself after losing to Benavidez in their sparring match? Or will he secure victory and demonstrate that a real fight is vastly different from a practice session? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Please share your comments down below.